differ from others? My answer to this important question has varied as I have matured and as the church has grown. When I was born in Utah in 1932, our church
Wow,
membership was only
1932.
about
That was
700,000,
just after Hoover Dam was built.
clustered mostly in Utah and nearby states. At that time, we had only 7 temples. Today, the membership of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints numbers more than 17 million in about 170 nations. As of this April 1st, we have 189 dedicated temples in many nations and 146 more in planning and construction. I have felt to speak about the purpose of these temples and the history and role of covenants in our worship. This will supplement the inspired teachings of earlier speakers. A covenant is a commitment to fulfill certain responsibilities. Personal commitments are essential to the regulation of our individual lives and to the functioning of society. This idea is currently being challenged. A vocal minority oppose institutional authority and insist that persons should be free from any restrictions that limit their individual freedom. Yet we know from millennia of experience that persons give up some individual freedoms to gain the advantages of living in organized communities. Such relinquishments of individual freedoms are principally based on commitments or covenants, expressed or implied. Here are some examples of covenant responsibilities in our society. Judges, military, medical personnel, and firefighters. All of those involved in these familiar occupations make a commitment, often formalized by oath or covenant, to perform their assigned duties. The same is true of our full-time missionaries. Distinctive clothing or name tags are intended to signify that the wearer is under covenant and therefore has a duty to teach and serve and should be supported in that service. A related purpose is to remind the wearers of their covenant responsibilities. There is no magic in their distinctive clothing or symbols, only a needed reminder of the special responsibilities the wearers have assumed. This is also true of the symbols of the engagement and wedding rings, and their role in giving notice to observers or reminding wearers of covenant responsibilities. What I've said about covenants being a foundation for the regulation of individual lives applies particularly to religious covenants. The foundation and history of many religious affiliations and requirements are based on covenants. For example, the Abrahamic covenant is fundamental to several great religious traditions. It introduces the holy idea of God's covenant promises with his children. The Old Testament frequently refers to God's covenant with Abraham and his seed. The first part of the Book of Mormon, which was written during the Old Testament period, clearly demonstrates the role of covenants in the Israelite history and worship. Nephi was told that the Israelite writings of that period were, quote, a record of the Jews which contains the covenants of the Lord which he hath made unto the house of Israel, end of quote. The books of Nephi make frequent reference to the Abrahamic covenant and to Israel as the covenant people of the Lord. The practice of covenanting with God or religious leaders is also recorded in the Book of Mormon writings about Nephi, Joseph in Egypt, King Benjamin, Alma, and Captain Moroni. When the time came for the restoration of the fullness of the gospel of Jesus Christ, God called a prophet, Joseph Smith. We do not know the full content of the angel Moroni's early instructions to this maturing young prophet. We do know he told Joseph that God had a work for him to do, and that the fullness of the everlasting gospel must be brought forth, including the promises made to the fathers. We also know that the scriptures young Joseph read most intensively, even before he was directed to organize a church, were the many teachings about covenants he was translating in the Book of Mormon. That book is the restoration's major source for the fullness of the gospel, including God's plan for his children, and the Book of Mormon is filled with references to covenants. Being well read in the Bible, Joseph